This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Barbara Focadas, on the podcast called Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Welcome, our wonderful audience. This is a special podcast. Of course, all podcasts are special, but this is devoted to education. I invite very, very interesting people who have something to contribute to the area of education, improving it really for children. So their experiences with education are better as compared to what they are now. And that means that I don't always interview teachers currently in the classroom innovating. They are part of this show as well, of course, but I also interview some very cool people who have something to contribute, for whom education is important, and they have some opinion and initiatives that can improve experiences for students. And today, it definitely is not an exception. We have absolutely fabulous guest. His name is Perry Knoppert, and that is pronunciation that I just am freely deciding to use.
Spot on. Spot on. It's perfect. And oh
Thank
boy,
you.
do I have an opinion. So get ready, Barbara.
Everybody now knows where we're going. It's
Oh
going
dear.
to be intense. Yeah, and we also both have obviously a sense of humor. We like to laugh. And education without laughing and allowing kids to laugh, I don't think it's the right thing to do even. But before we start laughing more and talking about education, I would like to tell you, our wonderful audience, about Perry a little bit more. Number one thing he is doing, he's founder of the Octopus Movement, and I am honored to be a part of this as well. But also, there are some other initiatives that are they are connected to the Octopus Movement in certain ways, and he can talk about this a little bit more. So there is Teltom, there is the Human Score, but Perry is also a keynote speaker, advisor in mobilizing movement, artist. I love artists. Well, no wonder my kid is an artist, and I used to be. I
It's
used to
good to
be.
be an artist, right? When I grow up, I want to be an artist. Isn't it cool if you can say I'm an artist, right?
If I used to be, but I'm not so much anymore. Can I still call myself an artist? I don't know.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
you can.
And
Permission.
also, permission given. Thank you so much, Perry. And also, what I love, and by the way, I invite everybody to check Perry's LinkedIn account, but not only on LinkedIn, what it says there in the highlight, non-linear thinking advocate. And I think like this is number one thing, most important to me, because I think, Perry, that in education, when we think about like initiatives and innovation in education, I think we can really change education if we change how neurodivergent, linear thinker, I'm going to pronounce that well. It's kind of a difficult word, how they experience education. Because right now, even though, and I can speak mostly about United States, but I know a little bit about what's going on out there, so to speak, not so much in Holland, maybe more in Finland. If we can make educational experiences better for nonlinear thinkers, neurodivergent kids, then we can say that we have improved education. What do you think about that?
And most connections that we have with the Octopus Movement are in United States, Canada, a lot of South Africa as well. But I'm here in Europe, in the Netherlands. If I look at the educational system in the Netherlands, the biggest problem here is that the official number in the Netherlands. So, how many people do we have in the Netherlands? What is it? 16 million people? I don't even know exactly. I'm bad with numbers, but something like that. And the official number of kids not going to school is 9,000. So they're not going to school because it doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And
Yeah.
you have to go to school, otherwise the police will come. Otherwise you're in trouble. Now, this is system relevance, what I'm going to say now. And I think this is the big problem. In the Netherlands, if you're at home and you're not going to school, but you see a coach once a week, an accredited coach from the government, and you see that coach once a week for half an hour, you're not considered not going to school. So the official number is 9,000. The unofficial number is 60,000 or even more. And They're not going to school because there's a problem. And like, what the hell? I want to say so many things, Barbara. This is my topic that I hate and that I love at the same time. I
Just
have
like
this
yeah.
very difficult relationship with education. I go to schools to teach about nonlinear thinking. I see these little kids in class. I want to say something. And I love that. I go to universities, I work with students. I love it. Yet the whole educational system. Oh dear. And there's another thing, and then I will stop talking, which I find very interesting. It's it sometimes it feels like we want to change the educational system so it's suitable for everyone. I
Yeah.
want to say that hardship is a good thing. And there is a really interesting element that nobody is talking about. But in research papers, why are nonlinear thinkers, and I will explain later what a nonlinear thinker is. Why is a nonlinear thinker a nonlinear thinker? It is a nonlinear thinker because that person is not afraid to look at their own thinking. And a lot of neurodivergent people have heard people say around them, "You're weird, you're different." And what
Mhm.
happens when you're a kid and people are saying, "You're so weird," you know, you're you don't fit here. What do you start thinking? You start thinking, "What's wrong with me?" And that's not necessarily a bad thing because the only problem that there is that our society is not trained that way. So a lot of linear neurotypical people are not asking themselves, "What's wrong with me?" Therefore, there is a lot of fear for the unknown. A nonlinear thinker and neurodivergent mind has been questioning their own mind so many times that they can allow chaos in their lives because they know how they think. They know what will happen if something difficult happens, right? But most people in the world are not that way. So they are fearful for not being in control. And that's binary thinking, where you create a system, says you use the system to be in control and not to go to the chaos. So there is a huge positive element in a disconnection at school with kids. I'm not saying it's going well and enjoy it, but there is a positive element there as well. And I really want to say that before we dive into what's going wrong, etc. Because the hardship also delivers something very interesting, and that's allowing chaos to be in your life. And that creates creativity, Barbara. That creates artists. That creates people that can go into directions that nobody else wants to go. So think that's important to mention that.
I think you have mentioned a lot of things. I I agree that when somebody tells you you weird, you different, whatever, that there is a way of thinking about it that you can make it your asset. But kid who's who's being told something like that, they're not gonna think about it like that. So I think that really there is such a major role kids because that's what's happening here in my life too. I have to when my kid hears something like that, you weird, you annoying, I have to be the one who reframes certain things for them, for my kid. She goes by the pronoun them. If you don't have that parental support, understanding what's happening and being able to explain to your kid, listen, maybe you are weird, but I am actually weird too. Who says I'm not weird? So it's like, who is supposed to help these kids to understand that their weirdness is okay and it can be an asset? Teacher, parents, both. Like, how do we do this? What is your vision for that? Because I think that it can also be, it can really bring a lot of kids down when they hear that.
Oh yeah, and different elements in my answer is one of the elements is that I have a lot of contact with people that used to be in this space. So now they're 50 and they discover they have ADHD or they're on the spectrum or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, it's not my fault, you know? And oh, my whole world changed. I'm on the spectrum. That's why everybody finds me so weird, and I'm not weird. And, you know, and that's wrong. You know, it shouldn't take 50 years of your life to discover it's not you, but
Yeah.
there's something else going on. So that's one. Two, as a parent, you need to understand what the hell is going on to support your kids. And
Mhm.
and people, if your son or daughter or if they're on the spectrum, then there is a likelihood that there is the spectrum somewhere with the parents as well. I see that a
Maybe
lot.
with me.
If there's neurodiversity, it's not because the wind is blowing from the east. It's what the hell? So learn to recognize what it is for you so you can support your kids. And the biggest thing, I think, and there's a role for parents and educators, but the last one is pretty difficult. I want to talk about that for sure, is how do you teach your kids to advocate for themselves to create something that works both ways? I'm against the system. I'm on the spectrum. I don't shake hands. That's the end of the story. I don't buy it. You know,
Mhm.
it's much more interesting than that. It's not like I have ADHD. Sorry, I can't sit still. That's the end of it. I think there is a responsibility for everyone. And that means that the parents can help you to understand that you want to educate your kid to go to the teacher and say, listen, I'm talking too much. I know I can't help myself. I find it annoying as well that you're angry with me about something that I have difficulty in controlling myself. How are we going to solve this? So there's a responsibility for the students as well.
Yeah.
Not when they're 6, but when they're a teenager. I have a great story. My kids went to international school. My kids are all neurodivergent, and so I know what I'm talking about. And I'm weird myself on the spectrum, ADHD. So don't say anything to me. I know what I'm talking about. And the Octopus Movement, we have a management team of 28 people. 99% of them are in that space. So
Yeah.
I know, right? My son came home and he told me this story. Dad, something awful happened today. I said, "Oh, tell me." Cool. I want to know. He said, "My classmate, tralala, he has severe ADHD. He cannot sit still. He is like all over the place. The teacher went nuts. She couldn't handle it anymore. And you know what she did? She said, well, you put your desk here by yourself, and the rest of the classroom is going to sit here. So I will isolate you. So you don't have anyone around you
Mm.
to talk with or to be busy with or whatever." My son stood up, took his desk, and sat next to the child that was isolated. Yeah, 10 points for my son, I think. And he said, "You can't do this. What the hell?" And I said to him, I said, but what was happening with the teacher? If someone has severe ADHD, then isolating is not the solution because he was very upset. He didn't want to listen to class anymore at all. He didn't want to talk to the teacher anymore because it became personal. And I wish it would be possible for students and for parents and for teachers to have a conversation about this. And my solution is always pause the system. Okay, in order to pay attention at history, I need to use my coloring book. So what? But Barbara, I've heard so many stories where the teacher is saying, no, I don't work that way. We're doing history. We're not doing art. So you're not allowed to use your coloring book
Mhm.
to pay attention. And this is a very simple example, but I think this is the essence of what's going on. It doesn't mean that everybody is free to do whatever they want to do. Not at all. But it would be so nice to have a conversation like, okay, my brain is different than normal. And in order to pay attention, I need to doodle or I need to color. I can't help myself. Maybe as a teacher, you can say, okay, let's give it a try and see how it works. And then when it works well, then you can shift into other directions and you can work with that. But It seems that this is so difficult. And even in today's world, I'm wondering, why is this so difficult? I've seen kids leaving school because of this example. He was not allowed to be in his coloring book, so he had to change school. And this is what I mean. The child also needs to learn how to explain this to a teacher.
Uh-huh.
My son has dyspraxia. His handwriting is an art by itself. It's so horrible that he cannot even read his own handwriting. Before the label of dyspraxia, teachers were constantly complaining to him. You
Mhm.
need to improve your handwriting. You need to do better. You need to do better. For years, Barbara, no one was thinking, maybe this is what it is. No. He had one teacher, she would write in red. How frustrated can you be? Improve your handwriting every time. Then we started to figure out what was wrong. He did the test, dyspraxia. He went to school with the note of the doctor, so happy to give that to the teacher and say, read this. And she was reading it. She said, dyspraxia? Never heard of that. Really? So you can't help yourself? That this is your handwriting? No. And he asked her very politely, can you please never comment my handwriting again? It's like asking someone who's colorblind to get the colors right, right? It's
Mhm.
what?
Well,
So, yeah, education, Perry and education. Dear, I love this topic.
I wonder, Perry, but we also know and more similar things are happening in the United States too. I think that there's just a commonality across the world as far as how, I mean, there's so much that teachers have to handle, and there's so much on their plates, and the systems that they have to be in. It's not like they can do everything that they want to do. We understand that. But I think that also when you think about, at least in the United States, and I wonder if this has something to do with the stories that you're also telling us, really, when you think about it, teachers, they have certain training, but really only teachers who study special education, they learn about these specialties. They learn about these different issues that all kinds of children can have because of a variety of things. There's autism, there is attention deficit, and there's all kinds of other conditions. But regular teachers who study teaching or study how to be high school history teacher or biology teacher, math teacher, they don't really learn that, and they're supposed to be up to date with their professional development, but this is not going very well, I don't think. And I wonder, like, how this is happening in Holland too. I have an idea that it's probably similar, that there
It,
are
it is
teachers.
very similar.
Yeah.
And can I be very Dutch and very bold? You
Yep.
know, where the hell is your responsibility? You know, if I hate it when people are hiding behind the system, it's a lack of creating possibilities for yourself. Sorry that I'm saying this. And I'm not talking about teachers, I'm talking in general. It's so easy to say, yeah, but this is how it works. This is how the system works. And I do see, and oh boy, I'm not making a lot of friends here, but I do see a lot of teachers saying, yeah, I would love to do that, but I don't have the space. I don't. But why is it that everyone has an example of a teacher that made the difference in their lives? Why
Yeah.
is it that we all have that example? Why is there the exception always available? Why is it that I have a feeling that when the teacher is saying to be a teacher is my calling, that I'm thinking, define calling for me because I don't get it when I look at what you're doing? Why is it that some teachers truly have a calling and you never hear them talk about the system or whatever, and they make a huge change in the world of these kids? And those are the exceptions. And most of them, they say, teaching is a calling, and I'm not educated to understand all the differences within neurodiversity. When you're an entrepreneur and when you're creating something, and you know this, Barbara, you know, I I'm not saying I I'm not trained to do that, so I'm not doing that. As an entrepreneur, you want to achieve something, you want to go somewhere, and you just make it happen within the possibilities that you have. And that's it. And I don't understand, and I'm very passionate about this because I've seen so much trauma and pain with kids and adults. Because this is the problem. If I do something and I hide behind the system, yeah, this is how it works, then fine, then something doesn't happen. But these kids are very fragile. They're at school, they're in the beginning of their lives, and things really go wrongly sometimes, in a wrong way. And they fuck up possibilities for these kids. It's horrible if you have the idea that you cannot do anything right, that you're a big failure, and that's the start of your life before becoming an adult, I find this very serious. To be in the positive note, in Japan, they do it differently. Barbara, do you know that?
Not so much about Japan. No, I don't.
In Japan, they don't do any formal grading until the age of 11, 12.
Mm,
So fourth grade, before that, there's no grading. Before that, it's only about being a human being. How does it
I
work?
love that. I'm
How does it
signing
work
up.
to think, right? And then you go after fourth grade, then you start with official tests. And my kids were at the international school in Brussels, which is absolutely a wonderful school. And when we were there, there was also debate not to grade anymore. There are different solutions possible to establish something that works better in today's world. In Japan, I love that. They focus on value and skill and life
Uh-huh.
skills before math and science and English and whatsoever. So it's about being a human being. And that's why the Japanese education is considered as one of the best in the world, because something different is happening there. Here in the Netherlands, we're crazy because we test the kids when they're very young, and the
Yeah,
result of the test determines what kind of education they will do. So if you mess up the test when you're 9, you can't go to university. And maybe you
that's
have
terrible.
dyslexia like me and my daughter. And because of your dyslexia, you cannot do the tests as well as it normally should be, right? What are we doing? What is this? So one test, and because of her dyslexia, determines that she's now on this path. It doesn't say anything about her intelligence, about her willingness to study and learn skills and understand in how to connect the dots and read between the lines. It doesn't say anything about that. It's ridiculous. We need
It
an
really,
upgrade, but a lot
it
of
really
people are
is.
talking about the upgrade and nothing is happening, right?
It's it's really bad. You said at the age of 9 in Holland. I can't believe that they still doing it, and there is no any pushback from any kind of like parental movement or any kind of movement that would change it.
No, in France, they're. I was talking about this with a good friend of mine. He was about to travel to France, but he can't go because
Mhm.
there are a lot of strikes. In France, they know how to strike. They close the highway and they're like, they want to stop this. And this is about education. This is about all kinds of things that are happening in life. Here in the Netherlands, we're not doing that. And there are a lot of people in the Netherlands against this system. It's not a good system. It's not a good system. No.
It's really not, and that's just so unfortunate to hear. And thank you so much for sharing this. And like going back a little bit to what you said, that I think if I understand correctly, that you're saying, and I agree with this, that really to be a teacher is not a job only. It is something that is very exceptional to be a good teacher, you have to, in spite of maybe lack of resources or something, or in spite of the type of system you are in, you have to be this caring person who will do everything that's possible to make the kid feel good about themselves. And for that, you don't need expensive resources. You don't need to advance technology in school. This is kind of like the core of I mean, we should not think in terms of this as being innovation, but in some instances, if teachers lack these features, and it's probably not the best word, then that's really what's missing, right? That's really what's missing. And like you said about the Japan, focusing on forming a community, learning about themselves, learning about the community, learning that as a part of community, we are not isolating anybody. Like you mentioning about this kid who had attention deficit and he was isolated from everybody else. That is not a community when you isolate a kid. So having this time to build the community and to explain to kids that's what we're doing here. We are community here. Nobody is being isolated here. Nobody is being bullied here. We are working together and we're helping each other when there is a problem. We all helping each other. I mean, these are just like kind of simple things that are sometimes missing, maybe in the classroom, maybe in the whole school. And that's what I seem to hear where you stand.
And and accountability. I think that's what I'm missing. You know, what is your accountability as a teacher? And I'm not talking about that everybody needs to have an average grade, or it's the accountability, the well-being of all your kids, allowing them to grow. And that's the accountability. And of course, teachers are now listening. Maybe they're listening, maybe not. And they're thinking, Perry is really, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not a high school teacher in whatever, whatever, whatever. And this is all bullshit. And he's not in the system. You don't know anything about me. You don't know a thing or two how my life looks like and what I've done. I think a lot of people are very much trapped in the laws of thought. It's We're conditioned to think in a certain way, and we're all trapped in that way. And I think NASA did the research when they were in the race to go to the moon, space race in, what was it, 75, 65? I don't know exactly. They asked a consultancy firm to look for the most brilliant, innovative, creative minds because they wanted to go to the moon. They needed some very interesting solutions. They found a group of people that were creatively brilliant, and the group of people were kids between the age of 3 and 5. Like, I don't know the percentages anymore, but like 80%, 90% of them were creatively brilliant. Then they looked at adults, like 280,000 adults. Again, forgive me with the numbers if I'm not precisely spot on. Forgive me. A large group of adults, the average age of 31, 2% were creatively brilliant. Balloons, that's nice. Where did that come from? So we're we're conditioned to think in a certain way. And I'm not blaming the teachers for not having the accountability. It's I don't blame them. I don't blame the system. I don't blame anyone or anything. I'm just very critical about what the opportunities are to do better. And
Mhm.
personally, I hate meetings. I never go to meetings. I think it's a waste of time. And and I see that we're talking about this in podcasts, writing books, and TED Talks, and they get invited to talk at schools because they see the educational system and they're very visionary in their thinking, and it's all fantastic. And yeah, nothing is happening, Barbara.
Mm.
And and I'm very excited about AI. Maybe AI is going to change everything in the world of education. I do think so. And I think The solution is very simple. Pause the system. Just make that the solution. If you teach teachers and kids to use the language of pause the system. Okay, I'm annoying as hell right now. I can't sit still. I'm having a bad day. This is the normal way. I'm here. Let's pause the system. Forget about all the laws of thinking. Forget about all the rules in the school. How can we solve this now? So things quiet down again. And then when
Mhm.
everything is fine, you reactivate the system. It's so simple, Barbara, but it works. And if you, as a student or a kid, can say to a teacher, can we pause the system? Because I can't figure it out anymore. I'm trapped and this is not working for me anymore. It doesn't mean that kids can say, can we pause the system? And I will sit on my desk, and ignore and be on my phone. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when it's really necessary to disconnect from what's the normal way to go
Mhm.
and look at the students or at the teacher or at the parent from a human centric way, where look at Japan, where they start with this human centricity, where human intelligence is the start, and then when that is organized well, then let's go to learning and grading and taking tests. It's so simple. We don't have to reform and change the educational system. We just need to allow a structure to allow pausing the system as being something normal. And maybe there is a mentor in pausing the system, someone who's allowed to pause the system, and that's it.
That's a great
It's not
idea, but
it's not that difficult.
thinking about humanizing, and we are human, things are not working. Can we just take a break and do something different, something that maybe, you know, is still obviously legal and proper, but something different than sitting in the, at the desks, right? If it
Yeah.
doesn't work for these kids, can I do as a teacher something different? Am I allowed to do this to treat them as humans, but also parents are a part of this piece too? I think that also sometimes, I know that teachers are experts in teaching, obviously, but I also think that sometimes parents, they are experts on their kids.
Yeah.
Who knows my kid better than I do?
Yeah. And
Not the
that's
teacher.
questionable sometimes, right? I'm not a fun parent to have at school. My kids are always laughing. Are you going to school, Dad? I'm always in debate with teachers. They find me very annoying, but it's so true. I understand my kid better than and I had a teacher when there was a problem with my oldest son, and that teacher was almost saying like, I understand better than you what's going on here. And I'm like, how is that possible? You see him a few hours a week, and this is my child. He
Mhm.
has my DNA. We think the same. I have my experience of 50 years with me in understanding myself and how the world operates. And I see my kid and I recognize things. Of course, I can say something. It's not that I know my child 16 years. I know my child more than 16 years, although he's 16, because I recognize my own DNA in it. What the hell? Right? Oh, well.
I think that um, I mean, there's so many things that we just touched on, and the idea of accountability, not accountability for some kind of standardized test grades, but accountability for, like you said, is my kid growing in this classroom? Meaning, does my kid believe that they can achieve? That would be a good accountability sort of factor for the teacher for me, better than any kind of grade, because ultimately I want my kid to believe in themselves.
Yep.
And unfortunately, in many cases in school, somehow school inflicts disbelief and doubts, and especially the group of neurodivergent kids. I mean, there is a reason why many of them quit school to begin with, and especially when you go up to high school, they just quit. It's happening in the United States. And also, they hardly ever work. Suicide rates is also, it's like 8 times bigger. I mean, the numbers are just horrible. I
Yep.
don't know if anybody realizes, anybody cares. And we're not here to blame the teachers because there are some incredible teachers and also principals. Absolutely.
We're not
But
blaming the
something is
teachers,
not
but
working.
don't tell
Some
me BS, when it's BS.
but
We're not
something is not
blaming anyone.
working. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. But
yeah.
there is something that is not working because if these high schoolers, if they don't believe in themselves, if they don't belong, they think they don't belong, they can't, and they quit high school, there's gotta be something that does not work. And it's probably multi-level and issues. But we touched on some of these things. We touched about caring. We touched on building community in which everybody feels valued. Was this ever effectively built in that school from the bottom to the top? And some
Mhm.
teachers do great job, and I know teachers like that.
Me
And then
too.
I know
Yeah.
teachers who don't care about building a community. I'm
No.
just there to teach, and that's it, whatever that is. So there is so many issues. There, it was such an incredible conversation, and we've just touched on so many things. Again, innovation in education is not really about technology or anything like that. Perry, what would your words be to someone who is now, let's say, in ninth grade in the United States, neurodivergent, kind of thinking about quitting school because they think they don't belong. Everything is just not great, and they don't believe they fit, and they just want to quit.
Call me. Call me. I'm on Pick My Brain. You can call me for free, 20 minutes. I'm here. Let me explain what nonlinear thinking is so you understand what's going on because it's very simple. You have a very nonlinear brain. Things are happening and you live in a very linear world.
Mhm.
That's not the problem, but it creates a misfit. If you understand that, then you understand what's going on and you can adjust and you can understand the things that are happening. So, if you're in ninth grade and you're thinking about quitting and you think that the world is horrible, reach out to me, call me. I'm serious. I'm very serious. Let me explain what's going on. And then maybe you can reconsider what you can do. I have a great example of my son who's 19. He was kicked out of the international school because he was 2 points short and he was weird and he's a bit on the spectrum and it's it, it's all weird and so there was a misfit. Then he had to go to Dutch education. He has never been to Dutch education. That didn't work. Of course it didn't work. And that didn't work and that didn't work. Now he figured out himself after a lot of research what he wanted to do and he's now doing two educations at the same time. He is a wildlife survival expert and he is a trauma medicine expert, and he all does it at the same time. And again, there's a problem because the Dutch school doesn't understand why he's doing two studies at the same time, why he's so weird. So the problems again arises. And the problem is not that he's doing two studies at the same time. The problem is that someone is there thinking this is how it should be. And
Yeah.
anyone who does things differently, there's something wrong with it. And that's fine. You can think about that. But they actively go against that child because they're doing something different.
Yeah.
So call me. I will talk with you. I will explain how I see things. And another thing, if you're a teacher in ninth grade and you're thinking, it makes sense what these two are talking about, we've created the human score with the Octopus. And the human score is also for the education world. And what we do is we ask questions to teachers and students, and there comes a score out of that. There's a dashboard that explains how human centric your school is. If you're very human centric with your school, then you're operating in a space where there is human centricity, where it is about the child. If I were a teacher and I was really passionate about what I'm doing, and if I have a huge responsibility and accountability to my kids, and I care, and I see that I work in an institution that really cares about that, and there are schools like that, and there are teachers
Huh?
like that, I want this to be clearly as a statement to the outside world. And that's why we've created the human score, and it's a logo where it says A, B, C, or D. A is green and E is red, some color that you don't want to be at. It grades in how human centric your school is. Do the test with the school, score an A, show it to parents, show it to future students. We care about human centricity, and we allow ourselves not to hide behind the system, but to really listen on what's going on with you as an individual. And we're working very hard with the human score to bring this into the world of education. So if you're listening and you're thinking, this is interesting, reach out to me. We do even things for free. We're a nonprofit. So sometimes we give away the human score for free to schools to really help them they can really tell the world how human centered they are. So reach out if you feel like you're a teacher and you're doing a good job at your school and you're different, and maybe this is a very good way to communicate this to the outside world.
Thank you so much, Perry. I already have some ideas about what clips from this incredible chat I will be posting. Well, obviously, we could talk much longer about education. It is a uh, super hot. It's not a hot topic. It's a super hot topic, I should
Yeah.
say, at this point, because
And
like
what's
some
going to change with AI? That's another 45 minutes.
for now, the
What's going
schools
to
are.
happen?
I know. For now, the schools are just trying to stop. It's like no AI, no
Yeah.
AI, no AI. We're not accepting any AI. But the teachers are using it. That's why this is
Everybody's
gonna
using it.
change.
Do they have any idea how kids are using AI? Not like the teachers. They think they use AIs to do their homework. That's not how they use AI. I'm wondering
Oh gosh.
if teachers really understand how kids are using AI
No,
because
they
they are
don't.
doing it differently than we do.
B
Definitely. Yeah.
but AI is a tool. It's not just coming, it's already here. It's going to change education. We don't even know all the directions, but, there is, I think there's hope to harness AI in such a way that it will really help in all the things that we were talking about, creating better community and really about this idea of oh, we are all humans here. So what is the goal of education? Helping these little humans who are growing to, believe in themselves, learn
Yeah.
something, but really learn about how to believe in themselves, how to solve some problems instead of memorizing some facts. So I think AI can help a lot with this. I can't. It's really cool. We're living in cool times, Perry. That's all I can
Very
say. All right.
exciting. And I think AI does a very good job in understanding facts and knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think by bringing AI into the world, I think there's going to be a response on human intelligence that is going to be more important, human creativity, human beings.
Uh-huh.
And that's very exciting. I think that's if that's the focus on schools as well, to go into human intelligence, that is very exciting because
We
that's
didn't
so
even
much
talk.
more in our how it works in our world than understanding, you know, some kinds of facts that you can use AI for now. So I'm excited about what's happening, Barbara.
Me too. And we didn't even touch on creativity, another
No.
topic that would be important, really,
Yeah.
to move the needle in education too. I mean, creativity is connected to learning. Perry, tell our audience, please, where they can follow you and like connect with you and just see what you're doing, what the movement is doing, and all your initiatives.
www.theoctopusmovement.org. Come and have a look. Become a member for free. Join the dance we do and have fun. We also have a global think tank for kids. We didn't even talk about that, which
We
is
didn't talk about
absolutely
that, right?
no, it's so cool. So check out the website. You can link very easily to me to LinkedIn or pick my brain. Book me for a session. It's for free. Now we have Tom Plus. It's a paid membership for $6 a month. where you can get all these awesome things that we're offering to everyone. You can become a founding member like Dr. Barbara. You can join us in so many different things. You can join the Brain Force Alliance as an organization. We do global projects. We do the human square. Tell Tom we're building the human mycelium because I believe that we're all connected, even if we don't see it. And we can use that with human intelligence without systems, but really grow together and make things possible. So there's so much possible. Some people say when they go to the octopusmovement.org that it's a little bit overwhelming. That's a little bit too much. Sorry for that. Just find your way, reach out if you have any questions. Just lurk, just join, just
Find
do
something,
whatever
yeah.
feels good.
Something that fits you, right? Because this is what this is about. We're not asking everybody to do everything. We know how that is. With exception of Perry's brain, somehow he's able to do a lot of stuff. I
I'm an
still can't grasp it.
octopus. I use my nonlinear thinking. That's why I'm so excited about this. I
Yeah,
use my nonlinear thinking. I have a mantra: turn on my nonlinear thinking, tune into the human mycelium, this, our connection, and
yeah.
drop out of the laws of thoughts. What means if I have an idea, I'm thinking immediately like, then I disconnect from that idea, and I'm like, no, 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 there are other possibilities. And
Uh-huh.
that's what I call the space between thoughts that creates creativity, that creates innovation, that creates connection, creates everything. So it's not that difficult even.
It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. I love that phrase. It's not rocket science. Not at all.
It was
Yeah.
such a pleasure to have you on the show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. And I would like to ask our wonderful audience to, of course, tune into the episode once it's published and follow Get Inspired with Dr. Barb so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much. And of course, check out all Perry's accounts and website he just mentioned. I know there is a lot of things, but these are good things. That's all you need to know. Thank you so much, by everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Barb.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Perry. Thank you.
This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.